right, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the JBDC Virtual Biz Zone series. I'm still saying Happy New Year because it's still a brand new 2021. And if you have some goals that you have not yet put on paper, or you've started going back on the plans that you had already, it's not too late. It's still a brand new year, and you can still go forward with those goals. So if you have any of those plans that you've gone back on, or you stopped doing because, oh, you can't bother or whatever, it's okay. I'm giving you permission to start again because it's still a brand new year and it's a brand new Tuesday morning. So thank you for joining us. My name is Sansia Campbell, as you would already know if you have already been here with us before. For those of you who don't know, I'm from the Corporate Communications Unit, and I am your host for this morning. Of course, you know we have a guest presenter with us. As you know, the Virtual Biz Zone began in April 2020 in response to the onset of the coronavirus. And it's a platform that we use to educate, empower, and sensitize our client group on developments in the MSME sector, because we want you to be able to operate in this new normal. Now, by just saying yes in the chat, I want to see the persons who have been working from home since the start of this pandemic. Let me say that quickly. How many persons have started working from home? All right, well, yes, Jermaine, we do that. I do. Yes, Dane, I do that too. In fact, if this had been last week, Tuesday, I would have been home today, but I work from home every other day. So I'm here today. Tomorrow I'll be working from home. And then I'm here again. So, you know, so it's become a new thing for us. It's something that we here in Jamaica, we're not necessarily used to. So this morning, what we're going to be looking at is the changing nature of workspace and workplace. And we're going to look specifically at how it affects MSMEs. There are some technological solutions out there that you can use to your advantage when you are working from your workspace versus your workplace. And so we have with us this morning Mr. Jermaine McDonald. And Jermaine has quite a bit of experience in the technological field, and he's the country manager of Inova Solutions. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jermaine, and then Jermaine is going to tell you about Inova and the technological solutions available to MSMEs right now. So Jermaine is the country manager at Inova Solutions. He has been in the IT industry for over 20 years. Having started his first company at age 16, repairing and selling computers. In 2014, he started an internship at Microsoft Jamaica as a partner accounts manager. Then he became technical account manager in 2016. He moved on from Microsoft in 2019 to join Inova Solutions Jamaica as a solution specialist. Since then, he has served as customer success manager and now in the capacity of country manager. He works with companies of all sizes to maximize their investments in technology by developing solutions, performing training, and providing support. He hopes to see a world where there is no novice technology user in the workplace. He spends his free time volunteering and creating content on YouTube. So he's been doing it for a while, and he still looks like 16. So I'm going to invite Jermaine to come right now, and he is going to do the presentation. If you have questions during the presentation, you can just drop them in the chat, and I will ask him to respond to the question for you. But keep the questions coming, and we're going to have a robust conversation post his presentation and demonstration. So it's over to you, Jermaine.
Thank you so much, Sansia, for that wonderful introduction. It doesn't sound like me, but thanks be to God for that. I do have a fair amount of experience in IT. I've actually been working in this space for about 20 years or more. So it's definitely my pleasure to be here. I want to share a little bit about what I do before I get into my presentation so that you understand the areas in which I am qualified to speak. So I've been working with computers for about 20 years. As I said, I started, repairing and assembling. Then I moved to networking. Then I did a bit of software and solution sales. I've worked with customers in a service capacity, and pretty much anything that you can think of. I worked with small businesses, medium-sized companies up until about, well, I've always been working with with those type of companies, actually, even throughout my different areas of experience. And so for now, what I do at Inova Solutions, I work with companies of all sizes to implement solutions for their businesses. And we focus primarily on Microsoft solutions, but ultimately what we do is work with customers to solve the problems that they have. So it's not about the technology. We don't actually lead with technology. We lead with helping them solve their problem. If it turns out that the solution that we provide helps them, then great. If not, then we actually try to point them in the right direction. But our goal is to work with customers in a holistic way and to provide value. And value is determined by you, the customers that we would work with. So that's just a little bit about what I do. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask. I'm going to share my screen, and the format that I'm going to use for this session is I'm going to speak a little bit on a topic that we're here to discuss today for about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the time getting real practical. I'm going to show you some of the things that I'll speak about for the first 20 minutes. I'll show you just some ways that you can adapt to this new environment that we're in. And it's interesting because for me, I think that COVID has provided a great opportunity for us to make some changes. We've been, I think, as a country, maybe a little bit comfortable behind, driving customers to a physical building. And now with COVID, we are forced to think outside of that. We're forced to think, okay, how can we serve customers from where they are? And then what I think that does for us is present a great opportunity for us to think, okay, so if I'm able to serve somebody at their home, what stops me from serving a customer in another parish or in another country? So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about today. Feel free to ask questions as they come to you, and let's just jump right into it. All right, so I'm going to assume that you can see my screen. If not, feel free to raise your hand and let me know. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, we can.
All right. So the very first slide I'm going to start with, which I like to start my presentations this way, is to talk about the concept of evolution. And for businesses, I think this is a state that you should always strive to get to, and it is a continuous process. So over time, your company, your employees, your customers are all changing. And what we find is that a lot of times companies focus on their current state or what they believe the state that leads them to get revenue, not realizing that as their customers evolve, as their employees evolve, then if the company stays static, then that actually leads to inefficiency, and it leads to just not being very effective. So if you think about evolution and what that means for your business, are you growing? Are you changing? Are you adapting to your environment? Are you listening to customers and taking that feedback and integrating solutions that can actually help them, while at the same time helping you grow and sustain the growth that you need to make more and more profits, right? So think about the state at all times. So we're talking about workspace and workplace. And so if you think about your workspace, where I am now will be considered my workspace. And my workplace is typically, let's say 2-3 years ago, would be a physical building or a location that I go to. I may be signing, I maybe sit close to my manager, I'm doing work, and I go home at 5 p.m. or whatever time I go home. That's typically my workplace. What COVID has done it's brought us to this place where now we're trying to balance our safety with the need to provide the same services and products we're used to providing for customers in a physical location. So I know that there's a state right now where a lot of persons I speak with, or you just see the sentiment online, that persons are kind of waiting to see things go back to normal. And my perspective on this is that if you're waiting for things to go back to normal, then you're not thinking about that same evolution that I spoke about on the previous slide. If you're waiting for things to go back to normal, then you're not taking advantage of the great opportunity that you have right now. And the opportunity that you have is the ability to say, well, we've always done it this way, but now we have an opportunity to do something better. We have an opportunity to use technology in the right way, because usually what happens is that companies would purchase a solution and then they try to fit certain processes in a way that makes you maybe only use a small percentage of that solution. So it's not really fully integrated into your processes and operations. And that leads to, again, that same inefficiency that we spoke about. But are you really, that company that is kind of waiting to say, okay, we get that vaccine and we go back to the way we've always done it? Are you waiting for that? Or are you now looking at your processes? Are you looking to see how you can be changing that flow and provide even more value during this pandemic than you were able to before? And I'm actually here to burst a bubble for some persons, in that I don't think things will ever go back to the normal that we know it. And what I mean by that is, what I'm seeing is that companies are already beginning to make some changes, and customers are beginning to kind of breathe a sigh of relief for some of the services that are now made easier during COVID than that they've been waiting for years. A simple thing we saw, like opening a bank account, is now easier. Having food or services delivered that you've always wanted, now is possible because of this threat that has provided a great opportunity. So I think those things are here to stay, because if customers are now getting used to those services, what it will mean is that they look at your company and say, well, I can get this from your competitor, but I can't get it from you. So if you're waiting for normal, then you're going to be left behind. So the thing we want to focus on, and this is my encouragement to you, is a digital first mindset. A digital first mindset actually means that, well, I'm going to talk about what it's not, and then we talk about what it is. So a digital first mindset is not, well, as I was actually preparing for this presentation, my wife and I coined the term digitalish. And what that means is that you have bought the technology, you say that you have been innovating, but what you've really done is kind of tacked on technology. You have it, you've done training, but you're not fully integrating it into what you do. And what I mean by that is, companies would purchase technology and are still using paper and pen to do things, or they may have a system that gives the ability to track your customers, and yet they're still asking customers to fill out a form, as opposed to just maybe doing a web form and integrating that data straight to the platform that they're using. And we see this kind of process that you have the technology, but you're not fully bought in or sold into using it. And that's what I mean by digitalish. So you have technology, of it, but you're not really using it. And what you can typically use to measure those types of companies is when they say, well, we've been doing this for the past 10 years. This is how we've always done it. We've made money doing it this way. Those are the companies that you really want to just kind of take a step back and say, how can we really make that better? So when we say digital first, what we're saying is full integration. And what I mean by integration is that if you've purchased, let's say, an accounting software, which is something I've worked with customers on in the past, I've seen companies use accounting for invoices only and payments. They're not tracking suppliers. They haven't entered their full chart of accounts. They're not tracking all their outflows of cash. So they have not fully integrated that technology. They've purchased it. They have the licenses for it, but they're not using it. It also means that we use the right technology. And when I say the right one, is that typically when you have multiple technologies to choose from, you want to choose the right one that actually aligns with your processes and your way of doing business, because technology is an enabler. It's not it's not the magic pill, in the sense that once you have the technology, you don't have anything to worry about. But it's actually meant to tangibly improve your service and product delivery. All right, and then you want to think about this concept of a digital state of mind, and that means that you're thinking of that full and complete marriage between technology, process, and people. So I have a question for you, and feel free to post it in the chat. Are you hampered by outdated technology right now? Is a system that you're using 5, 10, 20 years old? Are you still spending most of your time on manual processes, even during COVID? Are you still having customers come in to fill out forms and to hand it in, then wait for it to be processed? Are you still taking orders over the phone instead of through your website or through maybe some other medium? You know, I see a lot where persons will ask, where persons will post a product online and then they'll put DM for price, and it drives it drives persons online crazy, because they're saying, I am interested in your product, let me know the price without human intervention. And that's something that's very simple. And it goes to this mindset, well, maybe if I have them call me for the price, I have maybe an opportunity to close a sale, or maybe I don't want to put a price there so that maybe somebody might undercut that price. But what it does is really, it may turn off a potential customer, because if they're interested in seeing the price, it means they're interested in the product. And what you need to do is look at ways that you can now create value that will have them make a decision to purchase based on more than just the price. All right. Are you also just kind of dragging your feet along in terms of making those changes that maybe you've had in the plans for years, you know? So just think about that, see where you stand in that, and definitely DM for price will turn off a lot of customers. I've seen it. So, you know, think about it, think about that model, and there's actually an opportunity for a product that I'll share, which will allow you to answer some of those basic questions. And hopefully we can, you know, have a discussion around that afterwards. All right, so let's go back to this idea of your workspace or your workplace. So here at Inova Solutions, we actually have a model of work from anywhere even before COVID. So when the first case was announced in March of 2020 for Jamaica, I was already at home, already working, and the very first thing I did was said, okay, how can I help my customers? Because for us here, we made absolutely no changes. There was nothing that we needed to change in how we worked. There was nothing that changed in terms of how we thought about our processes, our services, because we were already a digital first company. And so when we think of that workspace for the individual employee, yes, Kamisha. So it is a work in progress. You know, Kamisha is saying that you still actually have to go in the bank when you open the account online, and it is progress. That's the thing. It's progress, and I believe we're going to see more innovation in that space very soon, because since there's still so much uncertainty, we don't know when this pandemic will actually end. And then we still have to deal with the impact that will come. I think a lot more companies will understand that you need to have the complete process being digital, but we'll get to that a little later. So your workspace now with tools like Office 365 means you can work from anywhere. And that's the technology that we use. And that's what I'm going to demo a few moments from now. So your workspace in a digital first environment is your laptop, your phone, or a tablet. What that means is that you can work from anywhere where you have a stable internet connection. And if you think about that, you know, one of the things we saw that was happening a lot when the cases with COVID were first announced is that companies were kind of playing this, well, let me say it the right way. Companies were kind of waiting to see what would happen. So a lot of persons were, you know, really advocating to stay at home, and some were saying, well, we can't allow employees to work from home. Everybody come in and we'll try to be as safe as possible. And what that meant is that if there was one case, then everybody had to go home. And when you have to do it that way in such an unplanned way, it causes disruption in the bad way because you don't want that type of disruption to your operations, because it means a loss of productivity. It means a loss of service for customers. It means persons can't access the information that they need to work. So your workspace really now being any digital platform means your workplace is essentially the internet. So if you think about it now in terms of the way you can work, imagine each employee being at home in the safety of their home, with an internet connection, being able to access the files that they need, to be able to work with customers they need, and you don't have to worry about now, how can we maintain the safety of everyone in this building that maybe was not optimized for COVID, because believe me, there is nobody who was prepared for this, right? So your workplace can now be in a digital version, in a digital first environment, can be anywhere that you have a solid internet connection. So that's the way I work. That's the way a lot of our customers have started to work. And it is something that you should fully embrace. And I will show you what that looks like very soon. Right. So the main point of all of this in terms of a digital first mindset is really to transform and drive value for your employees, but also for your customers. And I said employees first because your employees are actually the ones who represent you, and your customers will determine true value based on not just the product or service, but their experience with your employees. And so we want to be able to provide the tools that they need to be most effective and productive. And that will drive value for not just your business, but for your customers as well. So there's this concept of automation that we think about here at Inova. We talk about it with our customers all the time, and it's this process of automation. And what I mean by automation is if there's a process or a workflow that can be done digitally, let us try our very best to get those manual processes to be now automated. And it's simple things, right? You know, approval of sick leave, you know, verifying a product, marketing efforts online. All of those things that I've just mentioned can be automated. Can we automate maybe feedback from customers? Can we automate employee onboarding? Yes, we can. So you want to think about how you can automate, because what that does, it allows you to leverage the team that you have, because a lot of us are working with small teams. I'm yet to see a company that has the exact amount of employees that they need. There's always a gap. And so automation will help you in the areas where maybe you don't have enough staff. You can automate or rely on tools like artificial intelligence to be able to do things that it would maybe take 4 or 5 persons to accomplish, or it may take a long time. You can now automate. The next thing that you want to do is remove these barriers of location, right? So you want to think, how can my business or my company scale? And what I mean by scale, think about it this way. If you had a physical store, you spent all of your time trying to drive customers to that store because that's where you do business. Now, if you think about it with persons not wanting to come out of their homes as much, or with the restrictions to when maybe you can stay open, if you think about scaling now, what that means is that if you say, well, let us take our operations online, then the entire world is actually your target. And what that means is that you can effectively go from serving 20, 30 customers to 100, 200 with some very simple but powerful improvements, all right? And the next thing that you want to do is be very, very cognizant of the need to adapt. And what that means is that it doesn't mean, as I said before, where you just purchase the technology and you say, well, we've digitized our company, and you're still doing the same process, or you're still having the same business model. Because using that same example that Kamisha would have mentioned, if it is that you have filled out an application online and you still have to go in, that's considered an incomplete process. You have not fully automated that process. And so think about, you know, customers signing up to do business with you. One of the things that is a great peeve for me is when I'm ready to purchase or do business with a company and I have to spend so much time filling out information. I've always wondered why companies need so much information to be able to do business. Those are things that we need to strive to automate. Now, I understand where, depending on the product or service, of course, because some things you need that information from a compliance perspective or a security perspective. But I'm talking about simple products or services where we've just gotten into this habit of collecting all of the customer's information without thinking about how you're going to secure that information or how that information can actually be used. So I actually say, well, if you've taken the step to collect all of this information, how are you using it? Are you using it to track demographic information on your customers? Are you using it to say, well, can I communicate with them in a different way? Am I building solutions that will allow them to just do business even when that physical location is closed? You know, so you want to be able to think about these things, think about that evolution to remain competitive, because all it will take right now is for a competitor with a digital first mindset to essentially take all of those customers from you. That's a very scary thought, because if you're not taking the steps to fully transform and drive value in a real way, then someone else might do that. All right. All right, so now I'm going to get straight to a demo. So I'm going to demo 3 things, and I think this will allow us to have a good understanding of what's possible. Now, the solution that I'm going to show you is actually quite extensive, and so it could take me weeks to show you everything that's possible, but I want you to think, when I'm showing you this demo, not about that specific process or step, but think big picture. Think how you can use this in a real way for your business. Think how you can use this for your customers, and think about how you can start to, you know, begin to think in a digital first way, and then we'll, you know, jump right into the question. So I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second. I'm just going to bring up my next screen, and then I'm going to share again. Okay. All right. So I'm hoping that you can see my screen again. So let me start here. So the application that I'm using, or the service that I'm using, is called Office 365. Now, I think everyone is familiar with Office, but not everyone may be familiar with Office 365. And what this tool allows me to do, so that barrier that we spoke about between workspace and workplace, Office 365 allows me to have absolutely no limitations in terms of the way that I work. And it allows me to now automate, it allows me to scale, and it allows me to get some real insights into how my employees work, and then know how I can work with customers as well. So let me start right here. So this would be my dashboard. And to the left here, I have just some of the applications that are available within Office 365. So don't try to memorize these applications. This information is available online. So I'm just going to start with Microsoft Teams. Now we're on the Zoom platform right now, but Microsoft Teams would be, so a lot of persons compare Teams and Zoom. It's actually not an apples to apples comparison. Microsoft Teams is actually a full collaboration platform. And what I mean by that is Teams does more than meetings. It does more than, sharing your screen or sharing content. It allows me to fully collaborate with my team. So right now I have the ability to create what I call, functional groups or teams, and it allows me to work with my coworkers, but also it allows me to work with customers. So these teams that you see here to the left, and I'm actually gonna zoom in just in case there's someone who can't see. All right. So I have these teams, and a team means that it serves a very specific purpose. So I have one for tutorials. It means everything that I'm doing for a demo is within this team. I have a courses one, I have training, but the three that I'm going to focus on is this one called Business Model Canvas, Twitter, and Services team. And I'm just going to use three examples to show you what's possible. Now with teams, I have the ability to work with my teammates to just develop solutions that I would need for customers. Now, I'm hoping that I have the ability to simulate the concept of co-authoring with a team member. So if you give me just one moment, let me check if they are available. Just do that very quickly. So I've asked, okay, awesome. All right, so I have a team here, and what this will allow me to do is add a team member. So I'm gonna show you here on the manage team, the persons who are in this team. So I have my co-worker, Dane Smith, who is a part of this team. So we work at Inova Solutions together, and what I've asked Dane to do is help me to demonstrate the example of what we call co-authoring. And what that means is, let's say now we have a request from someone on this call to work on a product or service. I can have a conversation with Dane, and then we say, okay, let's work on a document for this customer. All right, so we actually started working on a document from last night. And what we're gonna show you is how we can both be working on the document at the same time, right? So in terms of how the interface works, what everything means, I'll show you that after. But for now, just focus on the example of us working on this document at the same time, all right? So this is a simple Word document, and this is supposed to be our business model canvas. And for those who are unfamiliar with the term, a business model canvas just allows you to, at a very high level, establish the key points of your business. So it's actually a tool that I thought would make sense to share in this forum, because a lot of persons are still unfamiliar with it. So at a high level, you can describe the key things about your business. So I can, determine the value that I give to customers here. I can determine key relationships. I can identify the channels in which I will work through. So this is something I thought would make a good example. So the key thing to note here is that I'm going to be working on this document with Dane at the same time. All right. So what we see to the top here is the initials DS, and it's showing me that Dane Smith is actually on page 2. So he's on this page that I'm on right now, and we're going to be working on this document at the same time. All right. So Dane, I'm assuming you're watching, so please go ahead and start making some edits. All right. So All right. So think about it this way. A very real example or practical use of this example that's being shown now is the ability for us to think about it before, where you'd be working on a document with someone, you create it, you do your draft, you send them a version, they make changes, they send it back to you, and you exchange maybe 5 to 10 emails working on the same document back and forth. And then at the end of it, you may find out that you're still not fully working on it in an optimal way, because then there are some last minute changes that you needed to make and you don't have access to that person to go through it before you have to submit it. With this function, I can work on a document in real time while I'm on a call with Dane. We can talk about it and we're both inputting our expertise into the document at the same time. So while I'm talking to you, you're seeing Dane fill in those fields in terms of our value proposition. And then once we're done, we can now send this document to a manager for him to approve, or send it or publish it online, or publish it to a document repository for us to then just move it along that process. So if you think about this, this is a very simple example, but this service allows up to 99 persons to work in one document at the same time. And it's actually not limited to Word. I can do it for PowerPoint, I can do it for Excel. And so now I can simply now not have that restriction of having to be in office to work with Dane, to talk to him, to have to get this project done. All right. So I'm going to move on to our next example. Thank you, Dane. We're not done yet though. All right, so the next thing that I want to be able to do, so let's say that I want to have a conversation around this document with Dane. All right, let me just minimize the chat window. So I'm gonna have a conversation with Dane now. Let me make sure I'm choosing the right account for Dane. I think he's on that one. So I'm asking Dane, how we did regarding the last customer meeting, and I'm able to get his feedback. We can have a conversation around this document or project that we're working on. And if I needed to have a meeting with Dane, I can just click on the icon that says meet, and we're able to have a conversation, looking at this document, working on it in real time, right? So that's one example of what we call co-authoring, but now I also have the ability to add, I believe, I can add my entire team. And so Dane is there responding. All right, so I'm gonna say awesome. And this is where I was saying before, where a lot of persons think of Microsoft Teams as just a meeting solution, but this allows me to work on projects with co-workers. And if we needed to, let's say that we're working on a project for a customer, we'd be able to do it within this team as well. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to showcase here, thank you very much, Dane, is the ability to manage files, and not just files that I've uploaded on my PC, but files from external locations. All right, so I have the ability to add cloud storage to this team, and I can add it from SharePoint, from Dropbox. And a lot of persons with Dropbox accounts, I can add Google Drive if you're used to using Google, and there are others like Box or ShareFile and so on. So I can add this cloud storage, and what this means is that, let's say that a lot of small businesses work with their documents in cloud storage. They'll pull it down to their PC, they'll work on it. You can add that a part of this team and work on it with multiple persons at the same time. And what this means is, if you think about that process of serving your customers in an effective and efficient way, if you're able to do things like co-authoring, then you have the ability to completely streamline that process. Think think again more than just working on a basic document. Think about, working on a product that needs to go through different, stages of approval and development. Think about the different, persons in the different teams. So you have persons in marketing or sales that you may need to speak to and collaborate on a marketing campaign. You can do that all within this platform in a way that you can access it on your phone, access it on your PC or on a tablet. All right, so the next thing I want to show you really very quickly is this concept of automation. And I want you to stay with me, because this is where we're going to get a little bit technical, not too much, just a little bit. So with Office 365, I'm able to automate some tasks that are considered repetitive for me. And so we have this thing called a flow or a workflow that we can automate. And what I've done is create a list, and I've created a sample one that will allow me to effectively capture information from Twitter, send it to a list, and that will allow me to then now speak to my team and discuss the information that we captured from that tweet. All right, so I'm going to show you how it's built, and then I'm going to show you how it works. All right. All right, so what I have here are a list of flows, and a flow is essentially a process that has been created to automate a function or a part of what I do day to day. All right. So I want to save tweets with a particular hashtag. And the first question that you may have is here, what's the point? So the point of this is that, let's say that I want to see the sentiment of my customers regarding my brand. So let's say that I have a hashtag called ISJ demo, right? So I've created this flow to say, okay, every time that there's a tweet that has this hashtag, I'm going to pull that into a list so that I can track those tweets, and then I can discuss that with my team, all right? So a flow is, every flow has a trigger, what we call a trigger, and what that does is automate an action, all right? So what I've done here is just set up, where it's going to be stored, and the name of the list is right below it, right? So this took me maybe 5 minutes to create, and I'm gonna show you what it looks like now, all right? So let me go to my Twitter account real quick. I think this is here, okay. So this is a page that I created just for the purposes of this demo. So I'm just gonna do a test right now, and I'm gonna say this is a live demo. I'm just gonna use a hashtag that I mentioned, all right? So I'm gonna tweet that out, and what I'm gonna do is just wait, I think maybe give it 5 minutes and it will be here, but I've done some tests before, and I'm gonna show you what that looks like, all right? So I'm just gonna search for that hashtag. And these are all the tweets that I've done before now. So I asked Dane to help me again. So we've done some tweets here, and what it has done is brought it into this document repository called Sharepoint. And so I've also taken the step to integrate that into a team that I have, right? So this team that I have called Twitter, I also have a Sharepoint list here called JBDC hashtag. And these are all the tweets that you saw on the previous page, all right? So I want you to connect the dots and stay with me here. I can now use this to track. Imagine if I'm running a small business and I've created a hashtag, and I've said to customers, if you want to reach me, use this hashtag. I can now see within a few moments what customers are saying about my company or that product or that service that I provide. Because typically what happens online is that customers, if they're filing a complaint, or they're sharing good feedback, they would use your hashtag. So what this does is in real time, or within a few moments, give you the ability to see what people are saying about that hashtag online, right? So think about this in the way that you can now be able to stay ahead of or manage sentiment towards your product or service online. So a lot of times you may have a storm that is developed online. Persons are talking about something, and then you hear 2 or 3 days later, and it has to do with your company. You don't want to be that far behind. And this simple process that took me maybe 5 minutes to create now allows me to pull information. And it's not just in this use case. Think of it as tracking now competitors' hashtags. Think about, tracking a trend or something that you'd want to stay on top of for your product or service. So this has a lot of applications. I just use a very simple example because I want to be sure that you get it first before we start to do more complex things, all right? So I'm going to give it some time to load. It has not loaded yet. So I'm just going to move on to something else in the meantime, all right? I want to show you another example, right? So let's say we have a list of approvals that we may want to work on as a company, right? So these are what we call templates. Let's say I want to, automate employees' sick leave or vacation. I want to automate a product or service request. So let's say that the process that you have is that when a customer has a request for a product or a service, you have to collect that purchase order, submit it to us to a supervisor approves, and it's submitted to a manager. You can automate that approval process using this tool that we call Power Automate. And this is a part of Office 365. So you have the ability to just automate things in a way that makes you just have the time to focus on the things that are important. All right, so let me see if I'm just gonna check one more time if it's in. If it's not, then we'll move on. And I'm sure by the end of the questions, it will pop up. All right. Let me see if there's a question for me. Okay. All right. So the next thing that we can do is, so let's say that I want to know the ability to manage files and documents. So if you think about all the manual processes that we may have, those may be in physical documents at a physical location. And one of the most painful things is so for example, imagine that you need to now go back and track something for a customer that you did a year ago. That's likely in a file cabinet somewhere that you now need to go to your office, search for it, maybe scan or get that in a format on your PC, go back home, action it, and then if you need to make any change, you have to now go back to the office. There's this tool called OneDrive for Business that allows me to just manage documents from anywhere. Again, all of these services that I'm showing to you, you can access them from anywhere. So what I've done here, this folder that you're seeing here, is that I've set up a flow to just automatically save anything that is sent to me through an email to OneDrive. Okay, I'm seeing a question. So are you asking about the flow that I did on Twitter? You're asking if that can work with any other social platforms? The answer is yes. So let me actually just show you that real quick. So let me go to all first. So you do have the ability, I've tested it with Twitter, but you can do it with Facebook. I believe you can, for example, do a flow to maybe pull videos from YouTube as well. So it really just depends on the scenario that you have, but short answer is yes, all right? So with OneDrive, I have the ability to securely store files, and the key word here is secure. Now with OneDrive, I'm able to now create folders share files with the persons I want to share with. So if I wanted to for example, send this folder to someone, I just click on share, and once I type in their email address, it'll send them a link to the document, but I can determine how they can interact with it. So if I uncheck editing, they can't edit this document, they can only view it. And that's very important because sometimes we have to work with persons to share information, but we don't want them to change or edit that information in any way. And what OneDrive allows me to do is securely store, but also share that information. So think again in context. We have a team of persons where, let's say you are working on, let me think of a good use case here. Let's say that we're working on a proposal for a customer, and you have a sales associate who works on the first phase, and you as the manager want to work out a particular price or margin for that service. You can share the file, allow them to edit maybe particular fields. That's something that you can do in Excel, for example. So you can block or lock certain fields, allow just the input of the item and the price, and you can now as a manager determine the final price or what is sent. So things like that you have the ability to do. And now let's say that we wanted to share, let's say that I created this here. Let me just create a new folder quickly. Let's see, let's call this courseware. So I'm just gonna go to this folder and create a Word document. And what you see here is it opens up Word in the web. And I have the ability from right here to just simply click on this document, and Dane Smith, who is a part of my team, I can click on it, send him this document. So I've just started the document, shared it with someone, and I know that I'm able to work on this, and Dane will see it as well, and we can both work on it at the same time. But let me just add something. I'm just gonna, and it's saving for me automatically. I did not hit save anywhere, but I know that it's been created for me, and it's right here. Let me just rename it quickly. And then I'm just gonna determine to now share this. So I have the option here, for example, now to copy a link. And I'm going to paste the link for this in the chat of this meeting. Let me stop sharing for a sec. And now anyone with this link that I've shared can edit this document that I have. All right, so if someone in the meeting now wants to give that a try, let me know. And so that is pretty much the end of my presentation. I'm just gonna cover just 2 more slides. So let me go back to this real quick. All right, so hopefully those demos were helpful. There's a lot that I could have showed you. I tried to focus it on just the very simple examples that hopefully you can just extrapolate and think bigger. It really depends on your company, your processes, the things you're trying to achieve. And so this is really a starting point. I think if you want to understand more of what's possible, we should definitely have a conversation. And that's actually what I'm about to go to, right? So here at Inova Solutions, we are the persons who help our customers transform their businesses, and it means different things for different companies. So we work with customers to just be that catalyst, if you will, for the evolution that I spoke about on the very first slide. So our expertise spanned all the Microsoft applications and services. But as I said, it's not really about the technology. It's about solving problems that you have. So we really focus on value and not the the transaction. It's not really about just doing a sale. It's for us helping you really being competitive, being, you know, ahead of just where you'd want to be able to help your customers. All right. And so just an idea of where we would start the conversation, I thought this would be meaningful to share, is that we really seek to understand your business, your process, your people, and the technology that you're using. So we'll have discussions about, you know, your long-term goals, your short-term goals, understand what you're trying to accomplish. And then what we do is essentially create a roadmap for you. And we have a conversation around how we can map now the right solution for those objectives that we would have discussed. So that's the kind of conversation we have with customers, even before we say buy product one or product two. And what we find is that customers not only benefit from the process, but they save money from, you know, not implementing the wrong solution. All right. So again, we work with customers of all sizes. And so if you're really interested to, you know, if you're watching this after the fact and you want to reach out to me, you can on any social media platform. I'm actually also on YouTube as well. So if you want to do a search and see some of the content that I have there, you can. LinkedIn is an excellent place to reach out to me to talk about technology. That's one of the things I do a lot on LinkedIn. And it was definitely my pleasure to present this, and I'm looking forward to the conversations that we're now going to have. Thank you.
Okay, Jermaine. So the first thing I'm going to do is go on LinkedIn and, and I'm gonna search for you. So let me do
yes,
that
please.
firstly before I get into anything else. Let me do that. While
Okay,
I'm waiting on this computer to, or rather, it's not my computer, it's the Wi-Fi. It's kind of slow, but okay. All right. So while I was listening to your presentation, I recognized two things.
Okay.
One of the first things I recognize is how important IT people are right now.
Definitely.
Because Jermaine, I'm gonna be very honest with you. It was a challenge understanding and keeping track of all the different things that you were saying. Yeah. It is so good that this will be on the JBDC YouTube channel.
Take time and go through it. Yes, definitely.
I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it, take it in bite-sized pieces, and then come back again.
That's the
idea. Then the other thing that I noted was that there is so much in terms of solutions that are available right now for our MSMEs. So are there any questions from my audience? Yes, David, IT to the world, very important. You all are the best. We need you. We cannot do without you.
We're finally getting some love.
Finally.
You know, finally getting some love. Yeah, so IT was always, you know, we always try to justify the IT spend. Yeah. And now IT is everybody's best friend. Yeah.
Yeah, now IT is everybody's best friend. I know that you mentioned automation as part of one of the solutions that Office 365 provides.
Yeah.
If you could just go back through and give us some examples of how businesses can automate using this particular software.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what I'll do, I'll actually just talk about it and not show it, because I know if you're seeing it for the first time, it may be hard to understand, right? Yeah. So where automation comes in, there are two ways to think about it. We have some manual processes in our businesses that we would benefit from greatly to automate. So think about it from everything relating to your customers, to your employees, to all the stakeholders that you have. If there's anything that you're doing on paper, think digital first, think, how can I move this from a paper-based process to something that is completely digital? That's the first step. In terms of what I showed during the presentation, there are now ways that you can automate what are considered routine processes that you already do digitally, but now you can do it more efficiently. So there are things that Office will allow me to do that I used to do myself. So for example, if it is that I used to pull down my attachments, save it to a folder, I can now automate that process. So instead of going through my emails and seeing all of my attachments, clicking save as, you know, giving it a name, it does it for me automatically.
Oh, for real?
Yes.
Oh, cool. I didn't know
So,
that.
so what it can do as well is it can trigger certain actions. So let's say that I get an email specifically from you, Sansia. So I can say whenever Sansia sends me an email, give me a pop-up notification on my phone to let me know that Sansia sent me an email. I can do things like that.
Okay,
And those yeah.
Basically, you can select the senders from whom you will automatically download.
Yes.
That's
So think about how much time that allows you to save.
It does.
Right, because not every email that we get is of the same importance. That's just the truth about it, right? So I can actually now filter, and this is something that's built into Outlook. If you're not using Outlook, I would greatly recommend it. I can set up rules in Outlook.
When you say Outlook, what do you mean? Like,
okay, so I'm talking Microsoft Outlook. It's a part of the Office 365 suite.
Right.
And so Outlook is for email and calendar management, right? Thank you. Right. So what Outlook will allow me to do is set up what we call rules. So a rule will say every email coming from JBDC should go to a folder called JBDC. A rule can also say every time I get an email with a particular appointment or a particular keyword, I can take a particular action.
Right? All right, hold on. I'm absorbing, so I'm understanding as I go along. So give me a second. So I have an Outlook email address. My personal email address is at outlook.com. So you're saying I can create a folder in there, for example, a JBDC folder, and say anything that comes from JBDC, it goes straight to the folder.
Yes.
Oh, for real?
Yes.
Oh my God, I learned something new today. This is fabulous.
Yeah, man. So there, and I mean, we spend, I think, email is probably one of those things that take up a lot of our time.
A lot of time, yes, it does.
And it's actually there's research that shows that it's actually better you check emails either at just a set time for the day, because, you know, turning off notifications, for example, will greatly help our focus on just our daily work. So what I do is that I have those rules set up, and I now have the ability to say, well, so I turn off all notifications on my phone. And what I will do is just now go back to those folders and say, you know, let me see if anything came in from my manager. Let me see if anything came in from a customer. And I go to those folders first, and then everything else I'll wait for when I have the time. So that allows me to save time. Imagine if every time you get an email, you look down and you read it, you're pulling away minutes at a time. And what really helps us is really just to kind of have that set for a particular time. So rules help us to do that. Using tools like Power Automate will allow us to make that process a little bit more efficient. All right.
Okay. All
right. So we have 2 questions in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. Yeah. So the first one is from Kamisha. What's the difference between Google Suite / Workplace and Microsoft?
All right. So both Google and Microsoft provide cloud services. Both have offerings on what I call both offer productivity suite and services. However, with Microsoft, you have what I call a full integration of not just the productivity applications, but more. So the application I showed you just now has about 35 applications and services built in. So I can do so many things. So for example, I know on a basic level, Google will have things that are comparable. So you have Google Sheets, which would do similar things to Excel, though not the same, but depending on what your purpose is, it could be that it's really about just, understanding what each provides. So I would say no, the differences or the differentiators is the ability for Microsoft for me to integrate with multiple applications. So if you think about the service that I just showed in Power Automate, I can now integrate with many other service providers for that service. So for example, I showed you where I can integrate my Google Drive into Microsoft Teams. I can integrate storage that I have from Dropbox into Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft allows you the ability to do so much more in terms of what it provides at a really affordable cost, right? So it's really about if you wanted to try and determine which to choose, I'd say let's have a conversation first to understand where the points of value might be for you, for us to determine, where Microsoft could provide value in place of Google in that regard.
Okay.
Right.
And the next question, with the access to the global market with our offerings and services, any e-wallet / Patreon type payments available in Jamaica?
So this is an area that I'm not sure I'm fully able to speak on, only because I've heard of some payment platforms or gateways being worked on, but I would say I'm honestly not sure, because I've seen, recently some feedback that it's not fully. So for example, I don't use Patreon personally, but I know persons, well, okay, I'm actually getting some help from, okay, so I think someone else is able to answer on it. Yeah, please go ahead.
Who is that, David?
No, Lacia.
Oh, I have to, Lacia, let me unmute you.
Yes.
Hold on a second.
Thank you. Because we want to get.
Go ahead, Lacia.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I actually work with Jermaine as well. I'm the Regional Customer Success Manager for Inova Solutions. So with regards to that question with the access to the global market with our offerings, any e-wallet or Patreon type payments available in Jamaica, there are a few. I think NCB does have an e-wallet offering. I think they started off calling it Quisk.
That's what that is.
There, yes, they have it. Grace Kennedy as well started off with one. I don't know what the marketing structure is for that as well. I know that you can use Payoneer. I think they have an e-wallet too. But that's an international company. That's not a local company, but Grace Kennedy and NCB do have e-wallet offerings. NCB's own, I think, is about 3 to 4 years old. So you can check that out. They have been using that for a while.
Yes, Quisk has been around for a while.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Lacia.
Thank you, Lacia.
All right, Jermaine, so I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, but I want to remind persons that if you like me, we'll have to go back and re-watch this presentation. You are welcome to do so. It will be on the JBDC YouTube channel at JBDC Jamaica, and this will be by about Friday, I will hope. I want to thank you so much for coming this morning, Jermaine, and sharing your knowledge with us. Definitely have opened our eyes to some of the solutions that are available out there. Oh, they are okay-ish for local support, however, the 60 days for international thing. I get, who is that? JJ Quisk? You can let us know if it's Quisk or Pioneer.
I
Like,
believe I saw something. I'm gonna try and research it. So Jay, I would say just message me on LinkedIn. Whatever I can find out, I'll just reply to you. But I've heard of I've heard of an next one. I just can't remember the name right now. So, but there's definitely need for that solution.
right. Yes, especially because a lot of persons are going e-commerce now. A lot of businesses are going e-commerce because of the fact that, I mean, people want to reduce. Unfortunately, this is the thing that I hate most about the pandemic, the reduction in human interaction. I don't think we need any less than what we had before, because then we will just be so much worse in terms of how we
Yeah,
behave towards each other.
I
But
agree. Yeah, I agree. I think we should use the so the way that I focus is that it gives us a great opportunity to do things that was what really should have been done 5, 10 years ago.
yes, yes.
So I mean,
Before
there are a
this
lot of things we've
get
been asking for as consumers for a long time, you know?
yeah, that's true. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. As I said, the presentation will be available on our YouTube channel, JBDC Jamaica. You can just go on, click the subscribe button, and you will be notified whenever a new piece of content is posted. I also want to remind you that our offices remain open. You can always give us a call or send us an email if you want to make contact with anyone in our office. If you want to come in for a consultation, I suggest you either call or email as well to ensure that you have an appointment, so that you're not, because we still have to keep that social distance thing happening. Jermaine is currently putting his contact information in the chat. He's on all the social media platforms, as he said before, and his email address is jmcdonald@innovacorporation.com. Remember, we have another session at 1 o'clock today, a feel of Africa. That will be our production-based presentation. So I invite you to join us for that one. And thank you again for having joined us this morning. And we will be back again next Tuesday morning for another virtual Biz Zone.